There was an abandoned church on the outskirts of Ash, tucked between vacant lots and forgotten ruins, where the power had never come back on after a fire in 1993. But it was the fire that doomed it to silence it was what they found in the basement. The news never made it to the press. The case files were shelved without explanation, but the older locals still whisper, especially after a few drinks, that 7 bodies were pulled from that place. All naked, lined up, their eyes burned from the inside out, like something had ignited their retinas behind the lids. For years, the building stayed fenced off with rusted bars, the doors sealed with crossed wooden planks, and a county-issued warning: structural danger, nitrogen monoxide entry. But no one really believed the danger was structural. The Ashford Church was a scar on the map, a place where even sound seemed hesitant to go. That's why Ryan, Amber, Josh, and Derek decided to cross the fence. They weren't looking for answers. They just wanted to film something different, creepy, real. The kind of footage that goes viral with shaky breaths and a blurry figure in the dark. The plan was simple: get in, film the basement, get out before 3 a.m. No lights, no noise, no messing around. But the air shifted the moment they stepped onto the grounds. It was summer, yet the ground was soaked, and there was a thick smell. None of them could place something between rusted iron and old meat. The bell in the tower, frozen in rust, gave a faint chime with the wind, though none of them were sure there was any wind at all. Amber was the first to push the side door. It gave with a sharp screech, dragging across the floor like something was being pulled on the other side. The main lock was untouched. No graffiti, no sign of recent break, but the layer of dust made it clear no one had walked in there for years. The altar was draped with a stiff black cloth, and behind it, half hidden by a broken table, was a metal hatch with heavy hinges. No padlock, just an inscription, carved with something sharp. The light that enters here doesn't come back. Ryan aimed his flashlight at the darkness that opened when Derek lifted the hatch. A wave of cold, damp air rose from below like the breath of a freshly dug grave. For a second, no one said anything, just the sound of Josh's flashlight shaking in his hand, and a sharp creak from down below like old wood bending ... or footsteps. Amber broke the silence. If there's something alive down there, we're about to find out. And she went down. The air inside the staircase was thick. Each stone step groaned under their feet, slick with moss and dark soil, like no one had walked them in decades. Ryan's flashlight flickered, casting warped shadows that seemed to shift on their own across the walls. Amber led the way in silence, not out of bravery but because somewhere between the top and the first few steps, she'd realized that speaking down there just felt wrong. Josh was next, headphones hanging around his neck. A faint noise started crackling in the right side. He thought it was static. The moment he passed the halfway point, the sound grew sharper. He pulled the headphones off and glanced at the others. "You guys hearing that?" No one answered. The underground hallway stretched farther than any of them had expected. At first, their footsteps echoed, but soon, the sound was swallowed by the walls like the structure was sinking into a space where sound didn't behave like it should. It felt like walking through something alive. They passed under worn concrete arches, walls carved with knife-scratched inscriptions, disjointed Latin words, symbols etched with ritual precision. There was a lingering sense that the place wasn't just abandoned, it was still being used. Not by squatters, not by vandals, but by something meticulous. Derek pointed at a circular mark on the floor. Inside the circle, salt, rusted nails, bird feathers bound by wire. In the center, a knife stabbed into the dirt. "This isn't old," he muttered. "Someone's been here recently." Amber knelt beside the circle. Her face shifted, less afraid, more ... familiar, like something in that setup made sense to her. She ran her finger through the salt and brought it to her nose. "Smells like blood." A few feet ahead, a wrought iron gate stood locked in chains. Carved into the wood beside it was a symbol, an eye, slashed through with a vertical line. A sharp metallic clang echoed behind them, metal striking stone. They all turned at once. The stairs were gone, not hidden, not an illusion. The tunnel behind them was now solid wall. Josh took 2 steps toward where they'd come in. He touched the stone. No way. He started pounding it with both hands. This was open. This was open. "We came through here." Ryan stared at the iron gate. He didn't turn, just said quietly, "If there's no way back up, we go down." Amber whispered something no one understood. She was locked on the gate, eyes glazed over. For the first time, she didn't seem to be with them anymore. Derek grabbed the chain. It was rusted, but not secured. A hard push was enough to make the gate groan open, revealing a circular chamber beyond massive columns, a domed ceiling, and markings on the floor that didn't look like they were made by human hands. They stepped inside, and the flashlights began to fail. The room felt like it was breathing. The domed ceiling loomed above, held up by grotesque columns, each one carved with distorted human figures, sewn mouths, hollow eye sockets, bones jutting out like the flesh had been ripped off by hand. In the center of the circular floor, a spiral of human bones led to a wide, deep pit. From it rose a humid heat. Josh dropped to his knees. He began to cry. It was as if something inside him was being pulled out, drained, tainted, hollowed. Amber walked straight toward the pit. Her steps were steady, like she was following a command. When Ryan grabbed her arm, she turned to him, but her eyes were gone. In place of her pupils, two pulsing black circles throbbed wet, alive. She smiled, but it wasn't Amber's smile anymore. It was a shell, and something inside that shell was laughing. "You think you came down here out of curiosity?" said the voice that came from her mouth but wasn't hers. "Nothing rises without crawling first." Derek bolted, trying to run back, but the gate had vanished. The space behind them was now solid wall. No exit, no trace it had ever been there. Their flashlights went out completely. The heat surged, the ground shook, and something began to rise from the pit first. The fingers, long, withered, more than 3 joints each. Then the head, skinless, wrapped in a translucent membrane, dark veins pulsing beneath like they were still forming. The creature was massive, misshapen. Each piece of it seemed stitched from a different thing. Ryan opened his mouth to scream. Nothing came out. Josh collapsed face first and started convulsing. Blood poured from his ears. His body shook violently, then went still, completely still. And then he stood up again. It wasn't him anymore. Derek was the last to fight back. He charged with the ritual blade he had taken from the circle and stabbed it deep into the creature's shoulder. But it didn't flinch. The blade melted in seconds. The creature grabbed Derek's arm and tore it off like snapping a dry branch. He screamed, but the pain didn't last long. It gave way to something worse. Laughter, loud, broken, manic laughter until his jaw cracked and his throat ripped open. Ryan, in shock, backed into the wall. He whispered Amber's name one last time. She turned to him. "She's still here," the thing said. "Want to hear her?" The creature leaned in, and the world went dark. 2 months later, a demolition crew was hired to tear the church down. 3 workers went missing during the night. The security cameras installed before the demolition were wiped by electromagnetic interference. Nothing was found underground, except a ring of salt, a spiral of bones, and a melted knife. The demolition project was shut down. No one ever tried to enter again.